I'm Mat Dejaegher. As Laurie said, I am the leader for IMAGINiT up in Canada. Want to be coming today to share some insights we're hearing across Canada and talk about how we're solving them. I'm also joined by Lisa Stine from Autodesk. I'll let her introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Matt. Yes, so as Matt said, Laurie said, my name's Lisa Stine. I am the Global Partner Marketing Manager for Autodesk, focused on the construction side of the business. I do come to this call with about 10 years of experience as a previous structural engineer working in the electric, very exciting world of electric utilities. And then I've been at Autodesk for about 8 years now, having roles all from sales executive to technical solutions executive, and now my marketing role for the past 3 years. So super excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Lisa. So what we're going to cover today is, some of you may not have heard of who IMAGINiT is. We'll get into that. We're going to talk about some of the insights that we're seeing across Canada. Then we're going to get Lisa to jump in and talk about how Autodesk is handling these challenges and do a little deeper dive into a platform that is helping complete those challenges. And then we'll finish with question and answers. So as I said, some of you might not know who IMAGINiT is. So IMAGINiT is a technology company that partners with best in breed applications. So our biggest partner is Autodesk, who's joined with us here today. The other two partners I want to call out is Eptura. They are a facilities management software company that is best in breed, I would say is leading edge. And then the other one I want to call out is Leica. They are a 3D scanning company that really helps people gather their as-built data. But the cool thing about these three partners is that all of that data and information comes together in one common data environment. So just go to the next slide there, Laurie, please. So the one thing about IMAGINiT that's very different than many people in this industry is that we deal with everyone in a supply chain of making a building or constructing a building. We deal with the designers, we deal with the cities, we deal with the manufacturers, we deal with the general contractors and subs. So a lot of the things that they are doing, a lot of the leading edge things they're doing, a lot of the innovations they're trying to do, we have line of sight in, and we start sharing those with other people like developers and owners of what's happening there. So you can start to leverage what they're doing to make your projects more effective, more efficient, and obviously less costly. Let's go to the next slide, Laurie. So being out talking to a lot of developers and owners, I'm starting to see some very common trends popping up in my conversations. The first one is all about the data. We're starting to see a lot of people wanting to own the data. They're sick and tired of having a platform mandated to them by the general contractors. They're also stark and tired of seeing, being limited to what they can see inside of that platform. They only get very limited visibility into exactly what's happening in their own project. And a lot of these things obviously are set up that way to benefit the GC and not to the person who's paying the bill. So one of the biggest studies that I found very interesting that I read lately was that actually 95% of all the data that goes into a project is never handed over to an owner or developer and is never actually used. And we think that that is a big miss. The next thing we're seeing is, obviously, as borrowing costs have gone up, and I know they're going down now, but still way more expensive than they have in the past, it's more imperative that these projects are being done on time and on budget. And a lot of it too is being able to have those insights to be able to predict when that could not be happening. The next thing is that people are wanting more visibility into their projects. They want to be able to hold people accountable. They are wanting to no longer be able to have subs, GCs, hide things from them. They want the ability to point out when things are going wrong. They also are requesting that they have this information in case of litigation. We know a lot of construction ends up in litigation, and having the data is powerful. And finally, they want to be able to have the insights to see, who and what is causing delays, is causing, overrunning costs into that project so they can deal with it, or even give them the insights to be able to deal with it in future projects, saying, I don't want to be dealing with those people anymore. The next thing we're seeing is this digital twin phrase come out, and it means many things to many different people. In your context, I would say a digital twin obviously is how we run our facilities maintenance, how we operate that building after construction. Obviously, these facility maintenance programs are getting more sophisticated, and people are looking for a way more seamless way to get the data in from the construction phase over to these facilities management systems. Now, one of the biggest hurdles we're seeing is that everyone is afraid to ask for this information. They're afraid it's going to upset their ecosystem. They're afraid it's going to cost them more money, or it's going to take longer. When reality is, all of this data, all of this stuff already exists for your projects. We just need to start asking for it. So based on those several things that I've talked about that we're seeing across Canada come up, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa, and she can start diving in to see how Autodesk is actually handling a lot of these challenges.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Yeah, so let's talk about the reality. And I will put a little bit of a spin on this, just coming from industry myself, again, working with electric utilities, working for owners and developers, maybe in different kind of focus areas than all of you, but really understanding why all of that project information is very important to own at the end of a project. But the reality of what our current state looks like is that in any given project, there is a ton of decisions that have to be made. Some are easy, some are really complex. I'm sure that that resonates with all of you. And usually those decisions are being made across tens to hundreds of individuals working on the project. We can see in this graphic, we've got our design teams, we've got our facilities teams, we've got our subcontractors, our PMs, our estimators, right? All of those people are handling different facets of the project. And we can see even more clearly with those dotted lines that everybody is communicating to each other. And often everybody is communicating in very different ways. And so as it stands right now, there's not a lot of assurance that at the end of the project, when it is ready for closeout and handover, I, as the owner or developer, am going to have all of the pertinent project information I need because, again, everyone's talking to everybody in different ways. Information is being stored in different areas. And we know that when those project stakeholders are done with the project, they're done and they're moving on to something else. So if we're not able to capture all of that project information in the midst of the project, it's gone, and it's often a very costly process of kind of re-getting that information. So some decisions that you make are within your control, others are not. But every single one of the decisions that are made inside of a project impact the progress and the success of the project organization and all the stakeholders involved. So it is very important that you have visibility as an owner and developer into all of the decisions that are being made. Having worked a lot with folks like you, some of the most common decisions or questions that I hear from owners are, who do I build with? Or how are we going to source capital for this work? Or, when and where and why do we build? Or when do we do, refurb jobs, right? So there's a lot of different decisions that you have, and those all impact, again, the different stakeholders of your project. So it is important that we're communicating in that connected way. Go to the next slide, please. All right, so what happens when we don't have informed decisions, right? When we're not all able to communicate in that same space? I often hear, again, from my experience in the field, I have experienced that the costliest decisions are the ones that are delayed, the ones that are uninformed, and the ones that are never made, right? Sometimes decisions are never made and we don't find out until the project is completed, and then we are way behind schedule, or there's some massive news article about something that's gone wrong with our project, right? Those are often disastrous. So those decisions, right, whether they've been made or they're uninformed or they just didn't happen, can have major, major project implications. Sometimes those are really highly visible, and sometimes those lead to very negative outcomes for individuals, a business, or the local community as a whole. Project delays, damages to the business, including things like litigation, bankruptcy, right, that Matt kind of mentioned, and most unfortunately, loss of life, right? Those things can all happen from uninformed decisions. These are just a few of the public examples of outcomes that are caused by the possibly tens to hundreds of decisions that the many, many players of a project have to give over, or have to decide upon over the course of a project, right? In addition, to these titles up here of actual situations that have happened. 25% of projects came in within 10% of their original deadline in the past 3 years. We know that from research from KPMG, so that's not ideal. And also, large projects typically take 20% longer to finish than scheduled and are often up to 80% over budget. So again, if we're making decisions or not making decisions in very siloed ways, that's what we're going to see happen. But if we're able to communicate better, we're going to see the mitigation of those kinds of issues. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we know that making decisions can be difficult. I hit upon some of the reasons that that's so. But in talking with many of our customers, and again, just from industry experience, it has never been more challenging to make decisions now. So a few of those reasons why it is so incredibly difficult to make really good decisions is that we are getting inaccurate data or we're missing data. This could be wrong data, poor quality of data, unused data, not the most up-to-date data, irrelevant data. 14% of all construction rework may have been caused just by utilizing bad data or old data or out-of-date data. So if we could just mitigate that, we're increasing our performance by 14%, which is massive. We're also seeing a lot of time pressure. So about 53% of contractors in the NAMER geo, so Canada and the United States, feel that time constraints and the urgency of decisions present the greatest risk to decision making, right? So we are like under so many time constraints. We often don't have time to sit and figure out all the information that we need to look at in order to make the best decision. And if we couple that with schedule and cost overruns, that someone being tired, overworked only adds to the difficulty of making the right call or making the right decision about something really imperative to our project. The other reason that it's really hard to make good decisions is lack of experience. So we've got about 20% of industry-wide turnover rate, and that makes this one of the highest rates in all of the industries that exist in society, right? We've got about 90% of contractors report at least moderately concerned about their workers having adequate skill levels. I definitely know this from working in the electric industry. We had a lot of folks that were about to be on their way out, and then we had a huge gap of zero experience, and then we had me coming out of college many years ago not having any idea what I'm doing. So there is a tremendous lack of experience in this industry, and it's also very hard to find skilled workers, right? People are interested in social media and things like that instead of coming out and doing that labor in the real world. And then the other piece that I think makes it very hard for people to make the best decisions is just miscommunication. We've got over 50% of rework being caused simply by poor project data and miscommunication. That's massive. We've also got over 30% of construction industry professionals saying that the very, very top reason for miscommunication is just unresponsiveness to questions and requests. So again, if I think, in a real world situation, I'm often just emailing people. I don't have confidence that they're receiving those emails. Maybe they responded to me and it went to my junk inbox, if they are even responding. So we don't get information back from people, and that just holds us up on our projects, causes those budget overruns and those schedule overruns, and really just impacts reputation. Also just frustrates people, and that's why retention tends to suffer. Next slide, please. Oh no, I can hear myself echoing. Hopefully you guys cannot. Okay, all right. But when we are making good decisions, right, when our decisions are well informed, we see that over $88 billion in potential savings from rework is available, right? That amount of savings will happen based on decisions that are made with good data. That is a number I don't think that we can look away from, right? So just by having good data, just by working off of the most relevant and up-to-date project information, we can save $88 billion. That's massive. And if we avoid rework, there's additional impacts to projects, including ending on time, ending without those additional costs, and as I just mentioned, increasing our retention, people not getting frustrated that they're having to do a lot of rework and spending extra hours in the field or in the office. So huge impacts with working off of the right data. Next slide. So let's talk more about what we need to actually be making those good decisions. We've talked about why we're not making good decisions, and hopefully those things are resonating with you. Not that I want you to be feeling that pain, but that you're understanding, right? That's making sense to you. So I have definitely learned from working with our construction customers across industries and different specialties that the key ingredients to improving decision-making processes include access to the right solutions, right? And this is regardless of location, site conditions, level of comfort with technology. Everybody can make more informed and earlier decisions when they have the access to the information that they need, right? Additionally, open collaboration very much helps with making better decisions. So construction is and will remain a people-led, teamwork-heavy industry. Has been, always, always will be. Great decisions are informed through effective collaboration of the people from design to construction to operations to handover, right? And within the process and tools that underpin their work. So from a technology standpoint, this is something that we've really, really embraced at Autodesk, being API first, open ecosystem across industries, right? So we want you to be able to connect your information with all of the project stakeholders while you're working through a project, but we also want people to be able to use different tools that they need while importing the information from those tools into that common data environment so that we are sure and confident we're working off the same project information, okay? Then we've got repeatable standards, right? So reaching a state of standards, whether those are repeatable or scalable or predictable best practices, that's going to give you the flexibility to continue to innovate and refine your processes to achieve your goals. So projects are getting much more complex. I mean, if we look at, I used to live in Philadelphia. That is not the most attractive city. Very boxy buildings, not a lot of like, cool designs going into there. Now we've got buildings that are entirely curtain walls. The complexity of our buildings are getting, it's just much, much more advanced. So we can't possibly have successful projects if we don't have anything that we can repeat and replicate from project to project, right? We don't have room for complexities and more ideas like that, right? So very, very important that we've got repeatable and scalable standards. And then when all of that comes together, all of the members of the project team can have greater confidence with the many decisions that need to be made. So they can prioritize things, they can understand, maybe should we hand this over and trade this off, for this thing instead of this thing, and they can validate assumptions. So these are what I feel are the bread and butter to making the very, very best decisions within your projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so you've heard me say a lot, and if you've talked to anybody from Autodesk a lot or IMAGINiT, we're all talking about connection, collaboration, common data environment. So, but what does that mean? What is the power of a connected environment? And this is really a huge difference with Autodesk. We are supporting this through the focusing on delivering 3 things for our customers and the entire construction industry. So start and stay with Autodesk, right? That's the first one. So design and construction are the defining elements in a truly connected AECO lifecycle. Autodesk is absolutely leading the way we have the largest network of AECO customers, over 200 million users across the full Autodesk platform portfolio, right? We create AutoCAD, we create Revit. Those are really the design staples in the industry. We are already the digital backbone that every project starts with. That is very, very true. Having, again, gone to like engineering school, we learned Autodesk. We got Autodesk software for free. And so that's what young engineers and architects and designers are learning in school. They're comfortable with Autodesk, and then they're coming into the industry with this very strong backbone and knowledge of this platform. And we also have over 41 years of industry-leading innovations. We've put a ton of blood, sweat, and tears in design, and we are now working to really support the entire project lifecycle initiative. Okay, we're also information where and when you need it, right? So we talked about that, the importance of having the information that you need at your fingertips and every stakeholder in your organization's fingertips. So if you spend less time searching, you can spend more time solving problems before they start. We have the shared common data environment that we're going to look at in just a little bit for AECO, which extends with Autodesk data models. We also have open collaboration with control through our platform called Bridge. And then our R&D team, they are completely focused on model quality and constructability and field accessibility. So it is our focus to whatever people are seeing in the office, be able to share that with folks in the field. So we're entirely connected. Again, if there's an issue in the field, those folks can communicate that back to the office. We know that gets picked up, and then the field folks are instantly getting the new revision or the new information that they need to seamlessly continue on with the project. And then lastly, we help you make better and more confident decisions. This is a this is what we all want to be able to do, right? Is have better project outcomes. So our platform approach enables standards for the business and its ecosystem of trades, partners, and suppliers. We really pride ourselves on flexibility as a core value. So standards for systems, processes, they need to fit the need of your business. We are not you need to fit into this platform. We very much want to understand what your outcomes need to look like, what data you need. And that is where, our partners like IMAGINiT very much come in and can do those business process overviews with you to understand where you currently are, where you want to get to, and then how that can fit into the Autodesk platform. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we have been working with our construction customers to move beyond drowning in all of your data and systems to a platform that does help to turn data into usable information that is much more actionable for your business from design all the way to operations. Information that helps you make much more informed decisions for your business and helps your teams make everyday decisions earlier with a heck of a lot more confidence. We've seen that an earlier, more informed decision process in the built environment, no matter how big or how small, can really have a significant impact on the outcome of a project. So you can see in this graphic, we've got the 4 phases of a project: plan, design, build, and operate. And along that the entire cycle there, right, we are utilizing the same data. We have confidence that no matter what plan or no matter what phase of a project somebody is working in, because we know that projects are not linear, they're very cyclical. We're constantly going back to plan, going to build, going back to plan. We are sharing data across the entire project lifecycle. And that is how we can ensure that everybody is working off of the right and most relevant project information. Okay, so that was fun. We love slides, but I know that we love seeing a demo even more. So what does this actually look like? I've done a lot of talking. Everything sounds good. Ideal state sounds really nice. But I want to show you what that actually works like. So we're going to get a little bit into the details with a couple of workflow walkthroughs. Now, there are a lot of pieces of, actually, Lori, if we can go back one slide, actually 2 slides. There's a lot of pieces of the Autodesk Cloud platform that is very, very helpful for owners, but we don't have too much time today, so I'm just going to focus on 4 of those, being project templatization, the common data environment that I've been talking so much about, issue management and tracking, and insights and predictive analytics. That does not mean these are the only things in this platform that I think are very relevant and helpful to owners and developers. It just means I think these are maybe the most important, and this is the time that we've got today. So if you want to learn more about other areas of the platform, you can absolutely reach out to Matt. He is a wonderful resource. So with that, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the first area we're going to take a look at is project templatization. So let's take a look at templatizing those projects. From an account level, that means that I'm looking at the company, right, the organization that I'm working in here. So for this example, I'm a part of the TS construction organization. And from here, I can go ahead and create different project templates that I then can utilize for different focus areas, right? Different industries, different verticals that my company is working on. So there's a couple of ways that we can create project templates. I could view one of the samples at the top of the screen here, and I could say, okay, I pretty much relate with the owner operator space. I'm just going to use that. I'm going to recycle that. Or I can, if I want to do that, I can grab that and then I can go ahead and revise it from there. Or I can go ahead and create my own project template off of an existing project that I've already made. So maybe I had a project that went really well. I feel like it was super well organized. Everybody was kind of, able to stay consistent in terms of how we were all communicating. And I just want to leverage the bones of that again. So again, you can definitely do that. But for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and create a blank template. And I'm going to call it owners and developers because that is who I'm talking to right now. Okay, and then from there, I can see that I have been taken to the project template, right? So owners and developers, and first we're gonna set up our own configuration. So this is just adding template members who maybe need to use this template to make a project off of it in the future. Maybe it's just me, right? Maybe I'm the only person that needs to own this stakeholder, but maybe it's 4 other stakeholders inside of our project team. It's really whoever we feel comfortable setting up the bones of the project itself. So we can grab those people, we can say whether they're admins or they're project members, what access they have, all that good stuff. Okay, so now it's just me, I'm a project admin, and once we have all of our folks in there, we can we can go and look at permissions for this template replication. I can go into different areas of my project to customize each of those areas for, again, this specific owner developer's template. So in configuration for this template in Docs, I might say, okay, I want to set up my folder structure here, right? And I don't want to ever have to do that again. This is my folder structure for this type of project. So we can eliminate having to do that for every single project. That increases our consistency, eliminates our learning curve. So for files, reviews, issues, there are certain issue types that I know that maybe we constantly run into when we're working on, say, a manufacturing facilities project. So we can make those changes here. We can add things like custom fields, root causes, all that good stuff. We can do the same for every other area in the project. I'm just going to focus on build here, but you can do any kind of configuration for sheets, files, issues, forms, RFIs, submittals, assets. So maybe for all of your projects around, let's just say manufacturing facilities, we have the same types of assets again and again and again. And I don't want to build those out every single time. I just want to build them out when a new project is created. Right? So I just want to replicate this template and then I don't have to start from scratch every single time. Templates. So again, we're trying to eliminate the learning curve. We're trying to get people on board much faster. If I am hiring the same general contractor for my projects again and again, and let's just say that they are manufacturing facilities, they're going to have confidence, like they know what the project already looks like. They know what the bones look like. They know how we want it to be run. And that's going to eliminate a lot of the headache and again, ensure that you have all the information that you need. All right, Lori, let's go to the next slide, please. So now we're going to take a look at common data environment. We're going to look at having all of the stakeholder information in that one space. We're going to look at project members having visibility into project revisions immediately. So we're not out in the field redlining something, sending it back to the office, waiting for that to get marked up, sending it back to the field. We have assurance that everybody has information when they need it as soon as it gets updated. We're going to look at accessing all pertinent project information, and then we're going to look at how all of that is going to ensure seamless transition to closeout. I will say there have been many owner organizations I worked with when I worked in a global capacity as a technical solutions executive, and I was seeing customers losing hundreds of thousands of dollars at the time of closeout and handover simply by not having all of the information that they needed to successfully manage their facility. And so this common data environment is how we mitigate that kind of a problem. That's a huge problem and we don't want it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Lori, take a look. All right, so let's talk about a common data environment. What that means is that we just have all of our pertinent project information in one space. So we can see here we've got all of our project files, and then we've broken them down into individual folders. Now this is something that you could have done in that templatized way, right? That capacity that we looked at just a minute ago. So you don't have to come into every project and build this out individually. This is something you could replicate from project type to project type, and then you could just utilize what you've already created in each of these individual files as well. So we have permissions for that subfolder. If we scroll down, we can go into the permissions there. We can see all the people that are inside of that project that have access to that subfolder, what their permissions are. And that's super important, right? We want to be able to have that flexibility. Again, this is something that can be templatized, but templatizing on a role or a company basis, meaning if Brenda is part of Autodesk, I don't have to know that Brenda per se is going to be a part of this project. I just need to know that she has an affiliation with Autodesk. And so when I go in and add her as a user to this project, if I've set up my permissions for this specific design folder, then Brenda is going to get those permissions for an Autodesk employee automatically allocated to her, right? Because I've already set up the permissions for a company. But I can also come in, I can add new people, I can add them by name, I can add them by email address, I can add them by role, company, capacity, and then I can set a permission level for them, and simply they can just see the files that are in that folder. They can download it, they can have complete admin controls. So again, got a lot of different design folders in here. If we hop into one of these, let's just say we're going to go into the architectural folder here. We can see our Revit files in here. We also can hold so many other file types, drawings, DWGs, XREF, MicroStation, all that good stuff. But for example, I can click into the Revit drawing, and I can see that I'm looking at that Revit model without actually having access to Revit, and I can also see that I'm looking at version 5. So as an owner, as a developer, I'm going to want all the finalized information of this project. And so I can be assured that I am always going to be met with the most recent version in this platform. If I ever need to understand changes, all of the other versions exist in here. I can do compare and contrasting. I can understand what differences might be between those different versions. So that's an option as well. But I can always click into any of the components inside of the Revit model as well. I don't have Revit on my computer, but I can click into those. I can go into the properties of that and I can see the metadata, the characteristics around that specific component. So I don't need to have access to that design software, very expensive design software, to be able to get that information. And so that's really, really great for owners and developers. You don't need to have this actual modeling software to understand what your facilities or builds are going to look like. So from there, we can hop back into our design or our whole project space. And we can see again that we've got design files scheduled, shared specs. So anything that you need to build out and hold, you can do so in this space here. It's very important that we have all this information in the same space, but all of our project stakeholders are so that all of our project stakeholders are working off of that same information. That's the best way for us to make sure that our budget stays on track, we don't overrun in our schedule, everything that we need to be shared is in the same space. But this is also the best way to assure that at the time of closeout or handover, you have all the information that you need to go and appropriately and seamlessly and frustration-free go run and operate your facility. So you're not hunting down engineers and contractors and architects for that information. You've got everything that you need inside of this space here. That's incredibly important. It's going to save you a ton of money also. All right. Okay, Lori, thank you for that. Let's go on to the next slide. So next, we are going to talk about issue management and tracking. So you might not think from an owner's perspective that this is super important. This is a lot of like the little nuances that happen inside of a project. But what I do want to know as an owner or developer are there big hangups on my project? And if so, what are they and why do they exist? And I also want to make sure that those are being tackled by somebody. Somebody is being held responsible. If I'm an owner and everybody is communicating issues just through emails, that's terrifying to me. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how much money that's costing me. I don't know how delayed we are. I have no visibility into that. And so this space here is going to play into what we're going to look at next, which is insights. But that is why, you might think this is too, I don't need to know all these intricacies and details, but you do. The other reason is because we're able to connect these issues to different parts of our project. So things like schedules, photos, assets, right? All of that good stuff that's going to then help us build out things like digital twins once the project is over. We need to have a very in-depth understanding of everything that lives inside of our project so that we can effectively build proactive models for preventative maintenance in the future. So let's take a look at issues now, Lori. All right. Okay. So there are a couple of ways that we can create issues inside of a project. The first is directly onto a sheet itself. So your subcontractors, your general contractors, any field folks that you bring onto your project, there's probably going to create issues in this capacity. So they can simply hop into a drawing or a model that the issue pertains to. Okay. And then from there, they'll just grab the issue tag over on the right-hand side. They can choose what the issue type is. Then they can just drop a pin where that exact issue exists. That's so helpful for you. You know exactly where it is. From there, they can fill in the title. They can update the issue type. If they need to put in a bigger description, they can do that. They can assign that to either a project team member, a role, or a company if they don't know exactly who needs to be taking care of that. And then they can add watchers. So you might tell your project stakeholders, my owner team, we want visibility into a notification anytime that there's a clash issue, for example, or if that's something that's interesting to your organization. So then from there, they can add you as a watcher. They can add location details in addition to where it lives on the drawing if they want to. They can add due dates, start dates, root causes. That can be something that you can mandate when people create issues. And I would absolutely recommend that you do make them put in root issues, because that, when we look in insights, we're going to be given a compilation of issue root causes, and that will tell us like where our projects are constantly going astray. And if those are things that we can pick up, then those are things that we can eliminate in future projects, so we can kind of course correct and have better performance in our projects as a whole. So root causes can be super helpful. They can also add attachments. So if there's any photos that better explain why this issue is arising, or any kind of documentation that does so, they can attach that there, as well as any other references from other parts of the project you can see there. So there is, as I mentioned, if there is, a photo, or maybe there is another issue that directly ties to this issue. Maybe there's going to be a change in pricing based on this issue. They can connect a PCO to that. So there's a lot of really good and powerful information that you can use both while the project is going on, but also during handover and closeout to understand maybe why certain things happen. You'll have all that information that you need. The other thing that I really want to point out and think is important is that there's always an audit trail created when an issue is created. So I can go in, I can see who made the issue, and then as people start to interact with that issue, the audit trail is going to get updated. So as the owner or developer, if I have questions about that issue, I know exactly who to go talk to, who to go learn more about the issue from. So that's one way to make issues. The other is just to go into the issues function. Any issues that get created anywhere in the project are going to live in this whole space here. You can see a clash issue that we just made on the sheet. You can make an issue manually. So if it's just kind of a one-off issue, you might make it from this space. You can do all the same stuff that we were doing inside of the sheet itself when we were making that issue. And then the other thing I want to point out is that I think it's important for you folks to have the ability to filter issues. So you might say, I don't care about any other issues except clash issues. You'll just be met with those if you filter those out. And then you might say, I want to report that as a BCA file, or I just want that as a PDF. When you make a report, you can choose to add those additional resources that might have been linked to that issue. So things like photos, things like any schedule changes, assets, right? We can pretty much print out that entire audit trail of that issue. That can be very helpful. So the issues are going to show up on the insights that we're going to take a look at in just a second, but it's going to give you a really good understanding of why our projects are maybe being held up or why they're progressing in a certain way. Okay. All right. I know this is a lot of information, but Matt is going to be ready to answer all of your questions in a few minutes here. I hope he's taking good notes. All right, so the last area we're going to focus on is insights and predictive analytics. And I would say, as an owner, I think that this is the most important part of the platform. This is where you're going to be able to look at your projects individually. How is my individual project progressing? Where are hangups around that specific project and that specific stakeholder team inside of that project? But also, I want to look at all of our single family housing projects as a whole. Where do they exist throughout the country, and how are they all progressing? Are we having the same kind of hiccups and problems with ABC home contractors on everything? This is how we can get that kind of visibility. That visibility is impossible if everyone's working in different environments. We don't have all the information in one space. You're never going to get predictive analytics like that unless you have all that information coming together. So I do think that this is the space where we're able to make the most beneficial and informed decisions. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead, Lori. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about insights, AI, predictive analytics. So you can see we're in the insight space of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And I'm also looking at this space from an organizational view, which means for this example, my company is ACS TSE Construction. So this would be your company's name here. And the reason that we want to be able to see that from this lens, not from a project space, but from an organizational capacity, is that I can see all of my projects together in this one area, and I can look at how our risk is and what our risk looks like as an organization. So all of this information I can look at project to project. If I have curiosity around how a specific project is going, I can definitely look into the insights of that project. But what we're looking at right now is our executive insight space. So this is everything all together. So this is going to show me the overview of all of my projects in that same space and how we are progressing as a whole. This is automatically compiled. I don't have to do, and there's nothing I have to do here to get this information into this space. I just need people to be working in this space. So I can look at the different areas of my project. We've got risk, cost, design, quality, safety. These are all customizable. You can see that my team below the safety have created their own areas, right? Areas that are of curiosity to them. So my assets, auto specs, Matterport, high level, these are all customized by my team. But the 4 or 5 at the top, we're going to give you the risk, cost, design, quality, and safety. You do have the ability to customize those, but you might want to add more. So we can look at insight cards. We can go to the insight card library over on the right side of our screen. And right now I'm in the risk dashboard, but I could say, you know what? I want to look at a design risk heat map. I want to add that onto my screen. And I also want to look at maybe a cost summary by projects. And so then if I have any integrations, and we have a ridiculous amount of integrations, but if I have any integrations with any of these third-party solutions, I can add that information into my card too, right? So that could be things like I have on-site cameras, that could be things like BIM viewers, that could be things like, any kind of estimating information, anything like that, where we could pull that information into this centralized space. So I'm going to go ahead and add these two cards that I grabbed. And those are, again, the design risk heat map as well as the cost summary by project. Okay, so I'm going to look at, so I'm looking at different project names. I don't have to do anything here. We were utilizing what we called Construction IQ, which is essentially just AI, to pull this information in from different parts of your project so that you can see what projects maybe should have a little bit of more concern or more of an eye on them, where we need to spend a little bit more attention, and what looks good to go. And we can filter this information in a ton of different ways, right? So I could just say, I want to look at things that revolve around construction management, and I can filter out that information, and that's it. Similarly, I could go into maybe the project types, and I could say, I just want to see risk for the projects that we're doing in the multifamily housing industry. And then that's going to be updated to just reflect back what I want to see. So we can see that in this space, we've got, we're going from 1,017 projects to 29 that exist in this focus area. And so all the information below is going to be siloed depending on what we filter in here. So it's a really, really powerful way to understand how your projects are progressing. We can also create reports from this space. And as I mentioned, you have the ability to create different dashboards in here. You can decide who and what to share this information with. So knowing not everyone in this project needs all of this project insight, we might say, hey, the 4 of us on our team, we're just constantly looking at specifics around this very highly focused area of safety or something like that. And then I can choose what information to bring in from there. So a lot of customization that you're able to do in this space. And I really this is how we make the best decisions on our projects. Okay. All right. And from there, I believe I'm going to hand it back to Matt.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lisa. Honestly, those 4 points really, I think, hit the mark here. I was actually talking to a developer this morning, and those 4 points were the biggest 4 points that they said they picked up a platform for. So thank you very much for going in and showing those to us. Yeah, so what I wanted to continue here is, what jumping on a platform like Autodesk Construction Cloud, what are the outcomes? What are people seeing who have done the adoption of this? And really, it starts with, as Lisa said, that common data environment, meaning all of the data from design to handovers all sitting in one location. With that data there, it's allowing them to have more projects on time and on budget because they're starting to get the ability and the insights to see and the predictions to see when things are happening, when they could possibly happen, and take action sooner rather than later. The other thing that we're seeing because of this is being able to hold everyone more accountable, meaning you're going to start to be able to see who's doing what on the job, who's not performing the way they should. Do you let that person go off the job? Or even for future jobs, you can start mining this data so you start having the best people performing the work for you. And finally, it makes it a real easy transition into a facilities management system, and you're going to have more data than you ever had before to be able to operate that building more efficiently and less costly than spending all this time trying to either enter the data or even just find the data, what needs to happen. And overall, as this is all digital, and there's a new term out there, I know everyone's probably going to go, oh my God, another acronym, but this is called DPD, or Digital Project Delivery. That is really what we're calling this, or Autodesk is kind of coining this as, is a fully digital project for yourselves from soup to nuts. Excellent. So if we go to the next slide, I'm sure everyone's probably sitting there going, wow, this looks like a pretty daunting task, big or small. How do we get started? What do we do? How much time does it take? What I want to say is, between IMAGINiT and Autodesk, we really have a systematic approach to get customers up and running seamlessly. It doesn't take as long as what a lot of people think. We're not talking months and months to get this running. There's a lot of very fast wins right away to get this going. And one of the biggest things, or the biggest hurdles that we are seeing people ask about is, hey, this is really cool, but I want it to talk to other business systems. I want it to talk to my ERP. I want it to talk to my CRM. I want it to talk to other project management platforms or the cloud. So seeing that there was this real need or void in the market, actually IMAGINiT created a tool called Pulse. And what that does is it allows you to connect all the different business systems and have the information go both ways or two ways, and bring everything back to that common data environment So it's going to give you an area and the ability to make really good informed decisions about your projects. So I want to thank Lisa for spending the time with us today. Appreciate that very much. And I want to open up for any questions that you may have out there.